Hello, everyone, and welcome to Padawan Unlimited. Thank you for joining me for this deck tech on a leader that I have been super excited for, and I've been talking at least on the podcast for several weeks now. I know he's probably not meta right now. He's not Django Tarkin Town, maybe Anakin Blue, but I really believe that there's something here with Obi-Wan Kenobi, General Kenobi, as it were. And I wanted to do a tech deck on what I think his shell should be in terms of the set three, gameplay. So I'm going to just kind of walk through everything here. It is kind of a work in progress, but I want to talk about the strategy and the thought process about deck building in general, and then I'm going to go into, the strategy for how to build how I built this deck. So when I build decks, which isn't too often, but when I do, I always think about what are my main goals? And for Obi-Wan Kenobi, my main goal is to kind of get to six resources so I can deploy him, stabilize, and then drop big units. Um, he has a Sentinel, so that's built in, and I like that, and I kind of also like that strategy in general. So again, thinking about for Obi-Wan Kenobi, my strategy for building this deck was, okay, how can I keep the board stable long enough to get to the late game? That's like my number one, right? And then the second component to my deck building strategy is where can I leverage synergies, right? Set three has a lot of coordinate stuff, has a lot of, unit generation. So if I was going to go that route, I would have built this very differently because I would try to go wide as possible in order to use the coordinate ability. But that's not the synergy I'm working with here. The synergies I'm working with here are actually, like I mentioned before, how can I get to the late game so I can get the big units? So when I think about synergies, I'm thinking about, okay, I need a lot of Sentinels that can pump up, and then I need a lot of Jedi and Force units in order to get to the late game. Maybe some heals, right? And then what cards are getting me to that? So then we're going to talk about that because I have something like General's Blade in this deck. And then then finally I think about my ratios when I'm building a deck. So I generally want to have at least 12 um 12 first turn plays for 12 cards for first turn plays so that I don't get so that when I'm trying to mulligan for the right cards, at least I'm not going to be, screwed because that has happened to the past. I like to have a ratio of maybe around 8 to 11 space units total as well. This is not a space heavy deck. That's not part of this initial strategy. So I stuck with that ratio. And then when I think about sideboard, I think about what pieces of the sideboard do I need to have in order to modify the main deck to tune up to whatever my opponent is playing. So if I feel like if I'm in a tournament and I see that there's a lot of aggro, I'm going to tune my cards, my sideboard to have a lot of aggro like anti-aggro cards, so a lot of heals. If I see that my if I see that my opponent or the tournament is going the other way where there's a lot of more control, all right, so I need to bring in cards that help me last a little bit longer and get to the late game so that I have my big bodies last and then also and actually, play them. So these are the general strategies when I think about just deck building in general. And then so how does this apply to General Kenobi? What I'm going to do here is I'm going to kind of go through my logic of the low cost cards to the high cost cards. And why I chose them and why I chose ECL. So the first reason I chose ECL actually is because since I have so many Sentinels, ideally there are not any people aren't getting through to hit my base. So I'm okay with starting with 25. Plus, green doesn't have a lot of ambush, and blue not really. So I didn't want to use cards like Timely Intervention in my deck. I'd rather just have the built-in one with my base. Um, the first card I have here, you'll see, is I have the High Ground. It's a new card from set three. You get to choose a friendly unit, and any enemy unit that attacks it has -4, which is to me a fantastic card when you think about the initial strategy I'm trying to do here is Sentinels. So I throw Sentinel down, I have a high ground. Someone might get one hit on him, one hit on the unit first. But if they don't, I'm throwing I have the high ground and nothing's getting through, especially in the early game. Just won't happen. Or they're gonna burn an ECL and then like to do 2 damage or something like that. Right. And then the next card I have here is Restored Arc, 170. I This is a staple card that I had. It's from other sets. Easy 2/3 body, and has a restore one. So it does the job it needs to. It's not necessarily the greatest card, but I think it's something just to have in space, especially as a turn 1 play. Because it can take out, for example, Lurking TIE Fighter if it's unbuffed. The second card here, Battlefield Marine, 2 drop, 3/3, very simple, very clean. It's a staple, I think, of many decks, so I kept it there. I'm keeping it as just a 2 drop to be able to trade positively or trade neutrally when possible. Gamorrean Retainer as a 2 drop. Again, Sentinels, 3/2, kind of just as good as a Battlefield Marine. Obviously, it doesn't have the Sentinel, but that's okay because I'm going to have other green drops playing, and we're going to talk about these, synergies that I trainly try to have as well. The next card here I have is Coruscant Guard. It's a mixture of both, Balverine and Gamorrean Retainer. It has the coordinate ability Ambush. This one is probably the clunkiest card. And if I can, I'm not gonna try to play this round 1, I guess, or the first couple of resources. Try to save that ambush, but if I need it, at least it's another 3/2 body. It's like having an Imperial Probe Droid, right? It's just a really strong body that can trade. Now we go to 3 resources. This is where the fun starts to begin because I have not Battlefield Marine, Echo Base Defender, 3 drop, 4/3 Sentinel, staple. Need to have it. It's not many cards are getting through this without being defeated immediately. Conquer Dawn Interceptors. Uh, Again, staple card from set 2. Gives if it's defending, it gets a +2, so it becomes a 3/4, which is great. Um, the issues that I have with a lot of these cards right now is that an Anakin card can trade positively into this. They do 2 damage to the base, right? But Conquer Dawn Interceptors and Echo Base Defenders get traded into. So this is something I just want to keep conscious in the back of my mind as we kind of go down the line. Because I'm trying to address this throughout the rest of the deck. So the next one is Captain Typho. I think he's good. I don't think he's the best card, but as a 3 drop, 2/4, okay, okay, okay power. But you're really playing him for his abilities. Was one played, you give a unit Sentinel for this phase, and then on attack. So let's say I did not draw Gamorrean Retainer. You didn't pull Echo Base Defender. You drop Captain Typho. You can give Battlefield Marine or Sentinel. You can give Gamorrean Retainer Sentinel, right? So this is just, again, if we're thinking about holding the line and then also synergies, right? These are the strategies I'm trying to employ with this deck. This is one of those things that's really, really great. Now, let's say you didn't even draw that. You got Hu Yang. Hu Yang is, again, 2/4, not the strongest, but you're not playing him for that. You're playing him for his abilities. So when played, choose another friendly unit, give +2/+2. So if you think about how you try to maybe deal with Anakin, for example, or someone who's cheating out stronger units, you play him, you put this on Echo Base Defender. Echo Base Defender is now 6/5. Or Gamorrean Retainer is now a 5/4, right? Your boost. These are the synergies you're going for. If you're not getting Sentinel, at least you're pumping some units on the board that you have, and it's gonna make it very difficult. And again, now if you don't have that, screw it. Throw a General's Blade on one of these units. It's obviously you kind of want to wait to play General's Blade till later, and we're gonna talk about that. But in a pinch, if you throw General's Blade, now your Echo Base Defender is a 7/6. Or your not Echo Base, not at that turn, but the turn after. But like Gamorrean Guard is a 6/5, and that's a really big body that someone has to deal with at any given time. Then we have Kanan Jarrus at the 4 drops. Kanan Jarrus, Takedown, Fell the Dragon are all the 4 drops. These to me are just kind of staple cards. It's kind of like, eating your vegetables. You kind of just need to have them. This is where we start to see the turn in terms of stabilization. If you can do it, that would be great because Kanan Jarrus, if he's 4/5 with a great on attack ability where you heal and discard a card from the opponent, uh, that's always a solid play if you have a good board state. Takedown again to get rid of Sabine if you can immediately or any other big body. Fellow Dragon, if for some reason someone's cheating down an exploit, boom, throw the Fellow Dragon and get rid of that big body unit. The next card here for the 5 drops are Obi-Wan's Ether Sprite and Kiadi-Mundi. Kiadi-Mundi is a little clunky, but I'll talk about why I'm keeping him in the deck. But Obi-Wan's Ether Sprite is great because you're really playing him for the when played ability, right? Or on attack. You may deal 1 damage to this unit and deal 2 damage to another space unit. So this becomes essentially a 6/5, right? And you can trade with pretty much any space unit at that time, right? You're talking about that's Fire Sprays. If you need to get rid Bright Hope, for example, you're hitting up really well with him, so you can get through with this body, right? And then Kiadi Mundi, coordinate ability. If you can get the coordinate off, great, I guess. But for me, he's a force unit that does that. You're doing 2 things. One, you're either EC, you could ECL him in. You can kill a lot of different units and survive in return. Or you save, or if he does come out and you save him for the next round, you can put General's Blade on him, and then you can cheat out even a bigger unit later on, right? So I'm keeping these are the 5 drop slots that I think are pretty good for what it is. I mean, I might swap out Kiadi Mundi for Ayala as another unit, but again, requires a coordinate. Not really focused on coordinate here. That's not part of the core strategy, but if you can pull it off, great. You probably won't, but great if you can. In the 6 drop spot, I have Obi-Wan Kenobi and General Riken. Now, typically, I would typically have Obi-Wan Kenobi like 3 drops. I think he's a great card, especially with all the Force units. But because kind of limited in space, and Obi-Wan Kenobi leader is already a Sentinel, then I have 3 Sentinel options with just these 3 guys, right? And one of them synergizes easily with Obi-Wan Kenobi, the leader, I mean, because you can give two experience tokens to it. The other one I have here on the 6 drop is General Riken. Again, Sentinels. Let's say you're not pulling anything. Let's say you're not pulling Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're not pulling Echo Base Defender. You only have like a Kanan Jarrus and maybe like a Battlefield Marine, like from the couple 2 rounds of before, or nothing like that. Well, then you can at least drop General Riken and you can make something Sentinel to hold the line. You can ECL him in with a 5/7 can kill. He can probably defeat many units and survive in return. Um, and then you can give someone Sentinel. And then if they do have Sentinel, then you're giving them an experience point. Great. So again, if you think about kind of again, the initial strategy is how do we get to 6? How do we stabilize? And where are the synergies? This is one of those cards that just really naturally synergizes with everything on the board, right? So you could either drop Obi-Wan Kenobi first and then him. You can drop him and then another unit. There's a lot of different lines here that you can play that I think is really good. And now there's four options here. So almost 10% of your deck, right? Um, by the time you get to resource 6, you should be able to pull at least one of these dudes to be able to stabilize the board. Now, if you haven't already done, if you haven't had the opportunity to yet, to cheat out something with General's Blade, which again I think is a great card, and you have opportunities from resource 3 to resource 5 to be able to play him because you have Hu Yang's a Jedi, Kanan Jarrus is a Jedi, Obi-Wan Kiadi-Muni's a Jedi, right? You have a lot of Jedi options. Throw it on Obi-Wan Kenobi, and then Obi-Wan Kenobi becomes a 7/10, if you can, right? And you can't get waylaid, I don't think, right? So there's a lot, again, synergies. Think about this is what I'm trying to go for. And if you go all the way back to the first card I talked about, I have the high ground. That if you have 1 resource left, throw that in to hit you, and then your sentinels are good for that entire round. So okay, let's say, assuming you haven't cheated out a bigger unit, the big bodies start coming out. So Luke Skywalker, three of these guys, no brainer, probably one of if not the best 7 drop unit in the game right now. Keep him, play him, save him for maybe to save him for a little bit if you're to see if one of your units gets defeated, so you can defeat another one. Take advantage of the -6/-6. Redemption home 1. are the 8 drops here after the Luke Skywalker turn. And the reason I have one of each is I also, again, you'll see one of my styles is I really like to have options, right? I really like because you never know what you're going to be thrown into a tournament, and as long as they, kind of do the same thing in terms of stabilization, then I like to have both. So maybe you can do 2 redemptions or 2 home 1s. I have one of each because you just again you never know. If you need the heal, you use a redemption and space. The Sentinel heal 8 if you can. That's going to be great. If you are great with heals, like your base is okay, and there's not really a strong space presence, but the ground's being, pummeled, and you might, throw in a home 1. And, ideally you'll get back your Echo Base Defender, right? As a strong sentinel. And now you'll have a space and ground presence and restore, which again is fantastic. And then if you make it to the 9 resource turn, let's say the game starts going along, you have the Zillow Beast, as kind of your main closer. Um, it does it's a big body beast or dragon of some sort. So it's not like Crate Dragon, which people get punished, but in terms of playing cards, but when played, every ground unit can't hurt you. So if you throw Zillow Beast down, um, it gives 5 -5 to every for attack power to every other unit, any enemy ground unit this phase. So you can potentially wipe their side of the board to gain control again. Um, or you can just go for the base and not worried about being hit back. Right? Fantastic. And they're probably, if they're playing ECL, they're probably already burned it by now, so they can't get around it. Um, and then if they do attack the Zillow Beast, he heals it the next round. Fantastic. Heals it this next round. And so not only that, not only does he heal 5, but Obi-Wan, um, use an action for him, heal 6. Like great, so they could start trying to swipe at him, right? And you're gonna be healing 6 every round. So they have to do a really, really, really big body to hit him, or like an Avenger or something, right? But to like just remove this card. So that's the strat, and then ideally this is the closer. So you're done after this, after a couple rounds of the Zillow Beast. So as you can see, um, with this deck, it's the strategy that I've employed is just get to the mid game and then ramp up with your big units, and then close out as soon as you can, right? And it's all based around Sentinels and interesting synergies that you get between the two. Um, Now, let's talk about the sideboard. So when I think about the sideboard, and this one's kind of still a work in progress. The sideboard for me is you have to go down a little bit. I think that, you have to be afraid of you have to be concerned about aggro, right? Django Tarkin Town is a big thing right now. It's a lot of space boats. Aggro is always going to be kind of like the boogeyman of your tournaments or any gameplay you have. So you have to kind of deal with it. And um, because of set three has introduced a lot of new unique characters. So I think a no-brainer here is having top target. For me, having 3 of them is not necessarily a staple, but it's well, as the meta is developing, I would rather have the opportunity to heal back my damage rather than not, right? Because this is like a very clear benefit. So top targets, especially with Sentinels, you're going to be trading as much as possible. So if you can, throw down the top targets and get the heals. That's so that if something does get through, you're healing it back. Tech, I love Tech as a card. I think he's one of the best ones from set 2. If you can, if you feel like the games are going along, let's say you're playing, for example, like a Palpatine green or something. Get Tech in there so you can put him in the resource row and then smuggle him out when you need him to play again a good card. Perilous Position. I actually am such a fan of this card from set 3. And now, if you don't know what Perilous Position does, Perilous Position is a 3 cost. When played, you put it on a unit and it exhausts it and gives it -2/-2. So you're permanently depowering an enemy. So, for example, uh, lurking TIE fighter, instantly gone. But if you're not removing it from the game, then you're at least making something exceedingly weak, and you get to exhaust it for the turn. So it doesn't get its attack off. Um, right? You could put this on Sabine when it drops, and now Sabine does 1 damage to base and has 3 health. Like this is just it's such a good card for 3 costs, I think. I'd rather have this than make an opening because make an opening -2 -2s, right? And heals your base, but they can still do something with it. Like if they had an on attack ability, they can still attack. Whereas this just you're done. Unless someone, has, they're playing like Grand Inquisitor and then like pings it to make it to ready it again. You're not, they're not doing anything after that. The next card here, I have Ewing Reinforcement just to play it out, just to feel it. Ewing Reinforcement, let's say you're at the 7 resource turn and you are desperate for something, and you just haven't been drawing your Lukes, you haven't been drawing General Riken, you haven't been drawing, any units that you need. Play it, you know, 3 units up to 7 cost. Either you're getting a Luke out, or you're gonna get like a Kanan and a Coruscant guard, or a Captain Typho and a Hu Yang or something. Like you'll get some type of combination. I just think it's a savior card if you just need that desperate play at the 7 resource turn, or if you're just trying to finish out the game and just go wider than them. That's always great. Uh, so the next card here is choose sides. I actually really like this card for from set two. I think that this card is probably better suited for a deck that has a lot more coordinate things going on, a lot of token units because you can just trade right positively in that. But for me, I always like the option of having the ability to like trade big cards. Let's say you have 2 units on the board and then their opponent has initiative and then they drop Avenger or Devastator or some nonsense, and you still have units on the board, just trade it, take it from them as a 7 drop. And I think that's just it's one of those savior cards that if you need it, take it, right? And then finally Chewbacca. I liked Chewie from set two. I played a lot of Ray double blue, obviously, and I started going to Ray red. And Chewbacca as a card is again, I think really good at an 8 cost, right? And then if you can also smuggle him out. He has grit 410, and he also has pretty much instant removal that you might need. Fantastic. I think I used him. I use him a lot. I've used him often. Not everyone's high on Chewbacca, but I've always been a fan. And I mean that's it. So this is the deck tech. I am building this. I've started to test it very lightly. I might do some tweaks throughout the next couple weeks, but I wanted to get this out there and get your opinions. What do you guys all think about this deck? Let me know in the comments. And then until next time, may the force be with you.